Hey guys, Mick here, and thank you for checking out this video. Now, as you probably know, I've been in the conspiracy niche for a long time, probably going on 15 years now. And when it comes to conspiracy theorists, David Icke is probably the biggest name on the planet, right? I mean, you've probably heard of him, and chances are you or somebody you know really digs his stuff. The guy has travelled the world. He sells out arenas wherever he goes. His books top the bestseller lists, and his website receives millions of hits every month. I mean, he's the rock star of the conspiracy world. I'm talking the rock star. And love him or hate him, he has the kind of following that most infopreneurs can only dream about. But for David, things weren't always like this. There was a period a long time ago when his business was on shaky ground. And, well, being the internet savvy kind of guy that I am, and combined with my anti-establishment leanings, I found myself working with David Icke. Now, I didn't know it at the time, but I was in the unusual position of witnessing someone I respect climb out of obscurity and actually catapult themselves to the forefront of a thriving global movement. It's not too often that we get to see something like that happen right in front of our eyes. We only notice it after it happens. Now, David Icke isn't the only conspiracy theorist that I've worked with, but he is the most recognised, at least in my opinion. His achievements would be the ideal outcome for many people watching this video. Bloggers, online teachers, product creators, affiliate marketers, anybody who sells information. So, it doesn't really matter what niche you're in, there are valuable lessons to be learned here. I mean, the whole purpose of Profit Copilot is to help people like you become more independent, gain more freedom, and become less reliant on corporations. So, I tend to find inspiration wherever it appears, and then I like to share it with you guys. And those values I mentioned, independence and freedom, well, they just also happen to be the same values that are held by the international movement that David Icke helped to build and shape, albeit through a slightly different lens. So, in a way, this post has been 15 years in the making to reveal how David Icke's achievements can be a source of inspiration for you, and also so I can run you through each of the components from a marketing point of view that enabled him to earn a place on the global stage. So, it was around 15 years ago when I began to see marketing and activism as essentially the same thing, and that is drawing attention to a solution. I experienced the weird relationship between marketing and activism firsthand when I was approached by a marketing team involved with a film called What the Bleep. I now realise that they had probably been inspired by J. Conrad Levinson's seminal book, Guerrilla Marketing. You see, they were sending boxes full of glossy posters to activists all around the world and asking them to distribute these posters. It was an attempt to create buzz for the film. This was the first time I realised that activism is essentially a form of marketing and vice versa. It actually gave me the permission I needed to reach out to other people and, well, aggressively promote the things that I believed in. Because it wasn't just for my benefit anymore, it was for their benefit too. I felt like I had some kind of higher purpose, drawing attention to laws that limit our freedom and invade our privacy under the guise of national security. Well, highlighting those concerns wouldn't just be for my benefit anymore, it would be for everybody else's, including my children. It was a game changer for me. And at the time, even though I'd been creating brochure websites, banner ads, writing ad copy and running search engine optimization campaigns for companies, well, since my late teens, I'd never really thought about combining technological and psychological marketing techniques for use outside of the corporate world. So once that penny dropped, the amount of time I spent with these activist groups swelled, and it allowed a symbiotic relationship to develop between them, the activists, and my own business. And that relationship still stands today. You see, building the business in this way actually resulted in a couple of cool things happening to me. The first one, well, that was my own TV show, which sounds more impressive than it really is. But the second one, and this is what really matters, it was gaining lifelong friends in an industry that still remains close to my heart. So, when you clearly show your values, you become magnetic to the people who share those same values. It's a win-win situation. But all this stuff required me to step out of my comfort zone. So you're probably going to have to step out of yours from time to time too if you want to succeed in business. For me, stepping out of my comfort zone involved being at the centre of attention. I'm deeply uncomfortable with it. I'm much happier to work behind the scenes, and it's a weird feeling when somebody you don't know walks up to you and recognises you because they've seen you on TV. Being the introvert that I am, I quickly discovered that the limelight isn't my thing. So the occasional YouTube video and the odd blog post is where I'm happiest. I only step into the limelight when I need to say something that I feel is important, or when I need to share something that I think will benefit others, like you guys. And the more I think about digital marketing, well, the more I have to share. But way before all that TV stuff happened, back in the early 2000s, as I was slowly building my business, David Icke knew of my website and he asked me to help him with his. I agreed, but not because we shared the same beliefs, but because we shared the same enemies. Shared enemies are important when it comes to establishing trust. I've written about this before. There are, three main types of groups that marketers can use to influence customer behaviour. And one of them is a disassociative group. This is a group that we don't want to belong with. So, what are my enemies or the disassociative groups in the marketing world? Well, people that use hype or sell get-rich or biz-op schemes. Also, freebie seekers, serial refunders, and the lazy all belong to another one of my disassociative groups. For one, they all make lousy customers, right? And they're generally unsuccessful. As an online teacher, I want my students to be successful, not only for themselves, but also for the word of mouth it might generate about my product. It's my experience that freebie seekers, serial refunders, and lazy people don't achieve much in life, so I don't want them as students. So, if I were to look at all the groups I've mentioned and boil it all down to its bare bones, what do each of those groups represent? Well, it's the something for nothing mentality. That's my enemy. It tells people that they don't have to work for things, that they're entitled to the same things as you and I without the effort, and that they don't have to contribute or pull their weight, and somebody else will provide for them. Now, it's not the individuals that I have a problem with, but the belief and the mentality that you can get something for nothing. To make this work for you, make a list of all the things about your niche that annoy you. Then you make a list of all the things that the people in your niche complain about. When you find the same thing mentioned on both lists, then you've found your common enemy. I'm going to bet that you already know that you can't fake this stuff. Not that you'd want to, but you've seen the same sleazeballs that I have and the extremes that they go to make a sale. Remember The Rich Jerk? Kelly Felix created a parody and he's a genius for it, but some self-proclaimed internet marketers must have figured that his videos were an instructional manual on how to get sales online. Now, I'll save my rant about internet marketers for another time, but for now, if you want to grow a following of any kind, you have to be real. Over the years, some naysayers have speculated that David Icke is running some kind of nefarious scheme to cash in on all things conspiracy. And that's absolutely preposterous. But hold up a second, when people start bitching about you, it's actually a good sign. It's a side effect of having a strong following. The bigger you get, the more haters you'll get. Anyway, there was a time when David Icke faced serious financial troubles. He's spoken about this publicly in a number of interviews, and it would have been easy for him to give it all up. It might have even been the most sensible thing for him to do at the time, but obviously that would have gone against his true calling. So, at every step of the way, he communicated openly and honestly with his audience, no matter how small that audience was at the time, and he stood up for what he believed in, and he faced the storm. And here's the real clincher. It's also apparent that he believed in himself, and that's what true authenticity is. Knowing that you're doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do. When we stop focusing inwards, stop focusing on our minor problems, and go beyond our selfish concerns and start sharing our knowledge for the benefit of other people, that's authenticity. Finding our calling and following through with it even when times are hard. Of course, we've all got to eat, and you have to make sure that you're compensated for your time and for your knowledge. But if you can find a reason to do it that isn't about the money, you'll step closer to creating authenticity. So, how do you find your true calling? How do you become authentic? Well, that question in itself is an oxymoron. Some people will tell you to find your passion and pursue that. I don't necessarily agree that that's the right approach for everyone. There are some hobbies and passions out there that will never give you freedom and security, no matter how big your following is or how big your email list is. If you can monetize your passions, then great, you're in a fantastic position. But it's not the only approach. Niche research is your friend. I'll talk more about this in a couple of minutes, but even if you can't think of any passions to get started with, as I've personally discovered over the years, you can become just as passionate about running a business. Well, that's a good starting point, right? I'm not talking about logos here. I'm talking about complete brand image from top to bottom. Your message has got to be clear and concise. I mean, straight away, you know what David Icke is all about and why it's important and why you should listen to him. He's on a mission, and it's bold, it's loud, and it's in your face. If you're a fan of David Icke, then you'll likely perceive him as representing absolute honesty in a battle of good versus evil. So, what can you learn from this? Well, look at the entry point to your funnel, and then look at every stage afterwards. Every email campaign, every sales page, every stick page for every product. Take everything you create and boil it all down to the core message. Find that one meaningful reason, and you'll find the reason for your content to exist. And that's your message. For me, my core message is that solopreneurs can become financially independent if they're willing to do the work. Storytelling. Well, that's important in marketing. Human beings, we learn through stories. It's hardwired into us. We understand them, we learn from them, and we automatically share and repeat the stories that we hear. Hey, our survival has depended on it for thousands of years. And if you want to see a true master storyteller in action, go ahead and listen to almost any David Icke interview. He is a remarkable storyteller, and his true story takes us on a ride that's filled with tension, drama, highs and lows. It's compelling, and it's irresistible in equal measure. You see, by revealing his vulnerabilities, it immediately makes him relatable and likable. His story begins with a journey of loss and redemption, and then it escalates to an us versus them storyline. The thing is, we all have these stories to share. You have a history and a background that's filled with parables, yet most people don't give these a second thought. Think about a time when somebody helped you to solve a problem, or a time when somebody gave you life-changing advice. Now, you probably have plenty of stories to choose from. To people like you and me, this stuff is gold, and it helps us to convey our message in a meaningful and entertaining way. So, think about how these events relate to your niche and what your audience can learn from them. David Icke's message is clear, and it's also consistent. In fact, almost everything about the guy's brand is just that. It's clear and consistent. His website, well, it's updated every day like clockwork, and his social media accounts all follow suit. His video casts, well, they're recorded and uploaded every week without fail. David is consistent, literally down to the number of dots he uses on his ellipses. Now, this takes dedication. Thankfully, David's now in a position to pass a lot of the work on to others while he focuses on creating high-value content for his audience. So, are you being consistent? Sure, you might publish every week and stick to whatever schedule you've set for yourself, but it's more than that. Think about the quality of your output. How well researched is it? Are you using your unique voice, or are you constantly outsourcing it to different people? Are you being consistent with your time, or do you have periods where you slack off because you're not feeling motivated? I mean, this takes discipline, right? For me personally, when it comes to Profit Copilot, being consistent means that outsourcing any of the content is completely unacceptable. From my blog posts to my products, I won't hire anybody else to create content on this website. I can't tell you how many times people have approached me and asked me to joint venture with them, only to suggest that we hire somebody else to create the content, or even worse, use PLR stuff. Now, there's nothing wrong with those business practices. It's often a smart way to do things, but that's not my brand. That's not what I'm trying to build here, and it wouldn't be consistent for me to engage with any of that stuff. Now, this one is a biggie. You've probably heard me talk about the importance of finding the right niche. It's something I try to make sure that all my students fully understand. So, here's something else for you to think about. Along with all the wonderful keyword research that goes into finding the perfect niche, there's actually a second approach that you might not be familiar with. Now, this is far more difficult, and I'm positive that David Icke didn't intentionally set out to carve a path in this way. But look at the information David publishes. You might not be familiar with his work, so let me fill you in. There are two enormous markets out there, the conspiracy industry and the New Age industry. David speaks to both of these markets, but not exclusively. In fact, I wasn't even involved in the conspiracy circles when I first became aware of David Icke. It was through some of my New Age friends. And while he now dominates the conspiracy market, he still has a strong foothold in the New Age movement too. And that's because, well, that's where he started. He started in both of these. Look at this diagram. A portion of the conspiracy industry has a leaning towards New Age beliefs, and a portion of the New Age movement has a leaning towards conspiracy theories. And in the middle, you have David Icke. What David Icke has done, I believe unintentionally, was to effectively overlap two seemingly unrelated niches and position himself directly in front of the people in the middle. He's acting as a bridge between both niches. That's smart, right? So, how can you use this to your advantage? Well, the cool thing is you can apply this approach to almost any niche you can think of. Okay, you can go looking for two separate niches and hope there's fertile middle ground that hasn't been discovered yet. But with that approach, there's too much uncertainty, and, well, instead of overlapping two unrelated niches, how about we just fold our current niche in half and target those people? That means we're also cutting out half the amount of competition. So, That's a smart thing to do. But then what if we fold it again? What's happening here is we're drilling down and segmenting the audience. The easiest way to do it is by gender. So you separate men from women. And then you'd be smart to slice it in half again, because there's so much competition out there in every niche. If you go 2 or 3 levels deep, you're going to speak to very focused people with a particular problem that they need to solve, and cut most of the competition out in the process. So next, to profit from this idea most effectively, you're going to have to sell something. We need some sales channels. Now, David uses a wide range of sales channels, probably more than most people, but we don't need to apply all of these sales channels, because choosing just one of these can give you great results when you do it the right way. But when it comes to information products, David Icke knows how to sell. As I mentioned earlier, he regularly tours the world, selling out shows wherever he goes. And he delivers absolute value for money, often speaking for more than 6 hours at a time. Now, in our world, in our little community, this is the equivalent of a seminar, right? But David Icke also live streams the event. So while people can attend his talks in person, buy a ticket and sit down, watch him live, he also occasionally offers the chance to watch online. So he live streams it over the internet. Now, this allows people from all over the world to tune in and watch his talk in real time. So David also sells books. I mean, this is where he started out, but it took him a long time to gain any traction. In fact, his material was so controversial that no publisher will touch it. It had to become self-published. Today, people like me and you, well, we can easily produce and sell digital books, right? In fact, I would say many of the people watching this are either doing that or intending to do that. I certainly do it myself and can vouch that it's a smart thing to do. But David also sells DVDs. Remember I mentioned the live talks? Well, guess what happens? Some of them are recorded, put onto DVD, and then sold. It's a smart thing to do because it maximizes his potential returns. And in our little world, we see this happening with physical products and pre-filled USB sticks. David also has a continuity program. He runs a membership site where you can get exclusive content and weekly updates. This is something that we should each be considering for our own businesses, because it can lead to reoccurring passive income. So let's put it all together, everything that we've learned in this video. So I hope you've gained some inspiration from my perspective of working with David Icke over the last 15 years or so, and his approach to marketing and activism. But when you get everything lined up, now it doesn't have to be perfect, but when you get everything lined up, you've got a better than average chance of connecting with your core audience in an original and meaningful way, and, well, building a solid business in the process. So let's summarize everything and let's put it all together and see what we've got. So first of all, we have to share common enemies with your audience. Then you have to be real with your audience, be real with yourself, and that's being authentic. You have to know your core message. You have to use genuine life experiences, stories to share your knowledge. You have to be consistent with the tone and quality of your work. And for really good results, you can split your niches 2 or 3 levels deep. And finally, use sales channels that your audience will be comfortable with. So we've learned an awful lot of stuff in this video, right? And hopefully you've been inspired in the process. So take these ideas that you've got right now, run with them, put them to good use. So I'm going to leave it there for now. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and I will see you again real soon. Take care.